on the surface, it would be easy to be intimidated by what looks like further fragmentation, but we actually see opportunity in another way. And I think about that opportunity really in two routes. The first one of which is really around greater simplicity. If you think about greater simplicity, is the big players make pretty substantial moves in this area, take greater control over distribution, take greater control over monetization of their content, then it really incentivizes them to do a couple of things. The first of which is really to harmonize that data across both the linear environment and into VOD in a way in which they've not done to this point. And the second thing is to create a single access point to that inventory across all of their properties, which actually should simplify things from a buyer's marketplace. And I think the reality is, when you think about consolidation in that way, we're very supportive of a lot of the initiatives that have been taking place in terms of the consortiums around Project Or and OpenAP. But I think the sad reality is consolidation is probably going to move us as quick, if not quicker, than collaboration is. And so I think from a buyer's perspective, really that consolidation is going to be an avenue towards a simpler marketplace.
So how do you see the expectations of your clients, performance, also the actual creative and ad load? Tell us some other aspects of this AVOD world as you see it developing and what you would hope to see.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that we face today is not talked about enough, which is really around frequency distribution. You know, if you, and we run a lot of analysis for clients, which often highlights the fact that you have a significant amount of delivery really focused on a very, very small proportion of total households. And that's a big issue, right? And it's further exacerbated by the decline in linear ratings. It's further exacerbated by volume-based metrics like GRPs and TRPs, which further pronounce that issue. So from our perspective, the ability to be able to have greater visibility and control in terms of reach and frequency, not only within the VOD space, but also across the full ecosystem is something which is incredibly enticing to us. As we think about customer experience, we believe in a phenomena called negative reach. And that's really at which point there is a tipping point where oversaturation starts to create ill feeling towards brands. And again, the ability to be able to have greater control and frequency management is really going to actually enable us to deliver a better customer experience.
Let's talk about data for a minute. There's a lot out there. It's a lot of sources that are developing from the big vendors, the traditional legacy companies, and a number of new ones. As you kind of figure out your investment, also optimize and figure out performance, what forms of data are important for you, and what do you hope to is developed by the industry?
Yeah, I think we're pretty focused on any data which allows us to take a simpler understanding about the impact that our exposure is having on consumers. It's easy to get lost, like you say, in the wealth of data that's out there. From our perspective, it's about having a unified view of audience, which in turn creates a unified data strategy. And we don't necessarily make a distinction between data for planning, measurement, and optimization. Those things are not mutually exclusive. And so really it's around data that enables us to do that, but also addresses key fundamental challenges that we see in the marketplace. We talked about frequency distribution and oversaturation. How do we ensure that we're not delivering wastage in our plan? How do we enable ourselves to reinvest that over frequency into other environments that allow us to follow the audience, but perhaps enable us to scale in marketplaces like CTV that have to this point had a premium associated to them? How do we ensure that within CTV we're also getting more granular insight down to a show level that allows us to have more control as buyers into the environments that we're appearing against? And thirdly, the thing that I think again is often overlooked in terms of data is how do we do more quantitative creative testing? And a lot of that has often been the domain of the digital world to this point, but really quantifying and understanding the impact of that creative within the native environment is going to be incredibly, incredibly valuable and move us forward in a big way.
Tell us about your thoughts about ACR and where that's playing and where it will play in terms of television.
Yeah, I think the majority of TV advertising today is pretty myopic. You know, when you think about the biased and unconnected planning inputs that we use, as well as pretty limited transactional models, what ACR enables us to do is really accelerate towards a new reality. And if you think about that, it's really the ability to be able to make smarter investment choices by having increased consumer or confidence in the consumption of our audience and be able to overlay other behavioral sets against that data. And when you think about the ability to be able to marry audience intelligence with that inventory intelligence, we can start to prescribe new value to inventory, which again, as a buyer in a pretty limited transactional world, will allow me to take greater control, but also have upside for the sell side as well.
So tell us, your perspective of being in performance for a number of years and now seeing performance being a big part of television investment. What's your thoughts on that?
I think the reality is performance is a substitute for accountability, and really the expansion of performance into other areas is really the increased accountability that we're placing on our media to perform. That doesn't necessarily mean that performance has to be held accountable to transactional goals, but means that we need to have a better understanding about what it's delivering against our business outcomes. And I think that's an incredibly exciting place to be for everybody within the media world.